Welcome to the Base Path Podcast, brought to you by New England Baseball Journal. I'm your host, Dan Guttenplan. Today, we are speaking with a defending state champion in the MIAA, a coach who is also on the travel ball scene with the Northeast Gators, Chris Costello. Good to speak with you.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah. We were texting before this, and you had texted, hey, I could talk baseball all day, and that's definitely the idea. We just want to talk baseball and have fun, and you're coming off a great year, so I'm looking forward to it too. Yeah, so let's go back to that Walpole season this year. I know you guys had been close, historically in the last couple of years.
Mm-hmm.
What was it about this year, do you think, that kind of everything fell into place for you guys?
I think it was really just a belief, and there was, and I don't like to keep referring to it because there were a lot of contributors, but there was a deeper connection, with this group, going back to 2019. And I think that during our rough times, even going back to, the Plymouth North game in 24, even through our struggles in the spring regular season, there was always a belief that we could, make a run in the tournament. I don't want to say that we would win the state yet, but there was always a belief. There was never any real panic during the season when we hit a couple of rough patches.
Yeah, and so you mentioned that Plymouth North game. That was in a D2 state championship game the previous season, right?
It was. Yeah, we ran into just a buzzsaw. The Dwayne's Plymouth North guys. DC Brown he's as good as any player I've seen in 25, 30 years of coaching high school baseball. So
yeah, he was a player.
Disappointing, but it was an incredible season with that group as well.
So after a game like that, do you start spinning it like right in the on the field after the game, like, hey, next year? Because I know you have seniors, so you kind of you don't want to say, hey, we'll be fine without you guys. Like, what is the process of kind of processing that loss and then turning it into a positive or something to motivate you for the next year?
Sure. I mean, inwardly, coach speak, you're always thinking of the next year. Personally, I always have what I call a 3-year plan. So I'm you try to develop things so you never get caught. But out of respect, obviously, for your seniors who have bled for you, you feel for them in that moment. And the bus ride home that day was tough. We sat and talked on the bus when we got back to the school. And then, you don't want to say you turn the page, but literally once I got off the bus, our focus went to 2025 and how we would build a team to compete in our league.
Yeah. And I know you definitely paid your dues before taking over as the head coach at Walpole. You were an assistant for 19 years under a legendary head coach. What did you, that's probably a longer runway than most guys have as an assistant before becoming a head coach. What did you learn and how did you kind of grow? Because you had a great playing career too. You played 6 years as a professional. What did you have to kind of gain as a coach before you took over that head job?
Yeah, every single thing I learned in how to deal with kids and run a program, baseball strategy, first is because and from Coach Tompkins.
Yeah,
he's the single reason we are the program we are today. Everything goes through him. And, through those 19 years, there were opportunities in other places to coach. And never once did I even consider it. It's the only place I've ever wanted to be and the only place I will be. We preach a lot about loyalty and tradition in our program. And that comes from, Coach Tompkins and, the influence of my, high school football coach, John Lee, two just Mount Rushmore guys in terms of high school sports. Everything I do, I try to take from those guys and the leadership they provided.
Yeah. And I want to go back to that 2009. You mentioned 2019, which was kind of like, if you look back on it now, it's crazy the amount of talent that was in that state tournament in Massachusetts. Yeah, you had Sebastian Keene from North Andover, who ended up, I think he got drafted out of high school
by the Red Sox. Yeah.
Yeah, and then he got drafted. Yep. Sal was and he's now with the Brewers, starting center
Right.
fielder. And then you have Cam Schlittler was with
Sure.
you.
Yeah, the year
And,
prior, there was Mike Vassell was at BC High. Those 2 years we were in the Super 8 was just an amazing abundance of talent. And, not to switch gears on that, but, the MIA should really, really reconsider bringing that tournament back, because that was as an elite tournament as I've ever been involved in.
No, I agree with you. If you look at some of those state tournament games you played the last couple of years, you guys would have matched up well with some of those
Sure.
D1 teams. In Austin Prep a few years ago before they moved to the NEPSAC, like they had a wagon too that year in Division
doubt.
3.
Yep.
But yeah, I want to talk to you about Cam Schlittler. A lot of the Red Sox fans, of course, saw him in the playoffs this year. And it was, I saw him in high school, and then I saw him at Northeastern. High school, he's probably high 80s, maybe 90 miles an hour.
Yeah, he would touch 90, but he lived 86, 88. Yep.
So what is it like now when you see him throwing 100 miles an hour, like, over the course all game, when he's a starting pitcher, he's hitting 100 consistently. How did that happen? And what did you see from Cam that made you think like maybe he could be a guy that could play in the big leagues one day?
Well, I mean, in our experience in high school, like sometimes, there a lot of guys in baseball use the term like the eye test, and it didn't take a rocket scientist, or a deep metric dive to look at Cam as a 17, 18-year-old high school kid and say that doesn't project to a potential professional body pitcher, mid 90s velocity. Just to sit back and say, in 2019, I said I thought he would be pitching in the wild card, round versus the Sox, throwing 100 miles an hour. That's insanity.
Right.
But it's a credit to him. It's a credit to his development, not only with the Yankees, but at Northeastern, and how they develop their pitchers. They're as good as it gets. And, Cam stayed on that program, committed himself in the weight room, changed his diet, made the necessary gains, and to make him the player he is right now.
Yeah, and what about like the makeup that he has in terms of his mental approach and his work ethic and stuff like that? Was that did that start in high school too?
It's hilarious when people ask me that question, because watching Cam, pitch in the big leagues versus, his time at Walpole, his mannerisms, his approach, his intensity, his quiet intensity, it's all the same. It's the same. Guys, they don't change a ton. You are who you are. He was raised, by a cop, a police chief who's a tough guy, and he was raised the right way. He always played the game the right way. And, it certainly is translated to a good start to his big league career. But the way he approaches what he's doing now is very similar to what he did in high school.
Yeah. I want to talk to you about the Northeast Gators. How did that experience? Did you start the Northeast Gators, or how did you kind of link up with them?
So, I mean, I've known Ned forever.
Yeah.
He grew up down the street, lives in Walpole now. And so my first run with them was way prior to what the Gator program is now. And I jumped on board with a really good friend of mine, Bobby Auditori, whose son Charlie, who played for us, went on to play at Bentley. When they were 12 or 13, that might have been 10 or 12 years ago. He's out of Bentley now. But when the Gator program was in its infancy, back then, and then I took a few years off. And then just prior to COVID, Ned asked me to come back. And, at that time, I had been coaching Legion prior to my head coaching in Walpole before the explosion of club. And, obviously I wanted to still do something in the summer, and I couldn't, coach Legion. So I jumped on with the Gators, and have been there ever since. I don't even remember what year that was. What did I start in 16? So, yeah, it was probably like right around 16 or 17 I started with those guys.
Yeah, you mentioned the explosion of travel, club baseball. And that's something we just put out our fall magazine, and we kind
I
of
saw it.
referenced like everybody now is, a lot of the commitments are coming, during the summer and that fall season. So it's a lot of those travel ball coaches and recruiting coordinators advocating for those players. How has that kind of evolved over the years, and how important is it for high school coaches to kind of link up with the travel and club coaches to make sure, hey, we're on the same page, not only for the health and safety of the player, like, hey, we know what the workload has been, but we also know where he's getting recruited and who's looking at him, and we're kind of on the same page that way too.
Right. I mean, in terms of us specifically at Walpole, I see recruiting as twofold. You got your high level D1 guys, and that's going to take care of itself. All right. The harder work in recruiting is the D2, D3 guys, finding the right fit, academically, socially, financially for families. So the high school coach, I think, still does a ton of work, in that D2, D3 realm. And there are still a lot of high school coaches that are actively involved in recruiting. I would say if you care about your players, you would be. But the majority of it does go through club. And, I think that's just a convenience thing for colleges to get out and put, eyeballs on guys in the summer. And then track their, developments and, from early spring to late summer, and then see where they can project them. But communication's a must, networking is a must. And, if you want to have that network, you almost have to be on that club scene, to make those connections and still be visible with college coaches.
For sure, yeah. And we just had a bunch of guys and club teams go down to Florida for the WWE,
Yeah.
WWBA stuff, like at the World Championship. I think for 18U might have been in Jupiter. The other one was Fort Myers, 17U. And it seems like, we have so many parents and even, high school kids reach out and ask us like, hey, what tournaments do we need to be at to get recruited, and to kind of get on that radar? What advice would you give if they're saying like, hey, how do I pop, or maybe it's going to, campus recruiting camps or clinic? Like what advice do you give if they're like, hey, I'm not getting any like looks right now, or I'm not getting any recruiting interest? How do I drum some of that up for myself?
Well, I would say first and foremost, if you're not getting any significant looks by 16U, I think that's more of a reflection, and I don't mean to sound harsh. It's more of a reflection on maybe the player, that
Right.
you need to maybe change gears here and start looking at things from a different viewpoint, maybe finding the best academic fit for you that matches with your baseball skill level. Like I said, I truly, there is always going to be the outlier, the late bloomer that, a guy might miss on, but they don't miss on on D1 guys, in our area with the exposure. And in terms of exposure, I mean, you create your own exposure. Good play gets exposure. If you're a good player, if you're a successful player, if you have made, the steady progress over the years, I mean, do I agree with the obsession with velo? No. But if you've shown steady progression in your velocity and your body matches, that progression and that projection, yeah, you'll get some D1 looks, but I think for me personally, the obsession with the D1 recruiting is crazy, because the majority of our club players and in total will play D2 and D3. And there's some really good D2 and D3 in our area that I think a lot of kids don't realize how good it is. I like to tell our guys, you think you're a D1 player? Go over in September, drive down to Wellesley and watch Babson and fall ball. And then come home and tell me, you're a D1 player after watching those guys.
Yeah.
So, exposure. I mean, there's no secret. If there was a secret sauce to exposure, we'd all be millionaires, So you go out and play. At the end of the day, really good players play at really good programs.
And it's gotten more difficult for high school guys to become D1 right out of high school because
Yeah,
the transfer portal. You know, these guys are recruiting guys that were 19, 20, 21 years old who have made it, you know, and at the college level and proven that they can be productive players. And now I almost feel like, you know, with the amount of transfers that go on, it's like you almost have to start D2, D3. And, you know, there's always that door is open to, we've had plenty of guys from New England that have made that jump from D2 to D3 up to D1 in the middle of their college career. But it's so hard now for these high school guys to get recruited as a D1 player out of high school.
I think there's even a deeper challenge for the MIAA guys, specifically public kids that are playing at 17, 18, where you can have ISL kids or private kids that are 19 going on 20, right? That's a different playing field. A body is much different at 19 than it is at 17. You know, special player out of a MIAA school will still get the D1 offer out of high school, but it's over the years, they're becoming few and far between, and you're starting to see, you know, and if I'm a college coach, why would I want an undeveloped 17-year-old high school kid when I can get a 19-year-old kid who's already blossoming and filled out, and I know what he's going to be, right? He's got man strength. You know, I'm hoping this guy might do it. I know he can do it. So, you know, that's the other little quirk in our area specifically that, you know, adds to the, you know, the D1 versus D2, D3 thing. And if you're that good at 17, 18 out of a public, you go D2, D3, and you progress, you could portal out. These guys are going to take those guys. There's a record of it in our area. You know?
Yeah. And if you're a D1 college coach, you recruit that 17-year-old with an idea that like, hey, we're going to develop him for 2 years. Like he's gone by the time that he's ready to play for you because he didn't play for 2 years. He wants to go somewhere else.
The development, I mean, there are some schools, Northeastern, obviously, I'm going to keep going back to them, are tremendous developers. But to your point, does a guy want to waste, you know, waste is a bad word, invest resources in a player and develop them, and maybe he sits for a year or two, and in this day and age, kids don't want to sit. He's gonna portal right out, and he'll find some place to play. And this guy just, you know, passed up a couple other recruits to take this guy. He's invested time and resources in him, and then he just portals out. So they're gonna, specifically out of high school, they're gonna want guys that they are pretty positive are gonna impact them early in their college career.
Yeah. And you would know what these guys look like as D1 guys coming out of public and private from being a coach for so long, but also from your experience with Team Massachusetts in the high school national championship,
Absolutely.
Which is played in Omaha. We always have a lot of interest in that. I guess it's a tournament. There were about 16 different states represented last year. Tell us about that tournament. What's it like? And I've never been out to Omaha. We haven't had a team from New England in the College World Series out there in a while, you know, since I've been in this spot. What is it like? What is that atmosphere like in Omaha? What is the caliber of play? And what's it like for the guy? What's the experience like for the guys in New England?
Yeah, the overall experience was, I mean, if you're a baseball guy at our level, it's certainly a bucket list thing. You know, obviously Billy O'Connell have a really good relationship. We're childhood buddies. We worked together in the summer at baseball camp. So, you know, it was a natural fit. And then Steve Healy coming up. So you go out there, Mike Denise with us, and that makes the experience all that better, going out there with three really good guys, first and foremost, but great baseball people. But the level of play was like nothing I had ever seen. You know, our team specifically was insanely talented.
Yeah.
Insanely talented. You know, Bradley McCafferty, you know, Gallo, some really, really good players. And the experience was great. The baseball was great. The level of play. You know, that team, we played a team from California, opening game. The kid Rabus from, probably pronounced it wrong, James Rabus from Wacona. He's a Northeastern recruit.
Yeah.
He come in and pitch 5 innings, shut down against them, you know, and it speaks to the talent in Massachusetts that we're competing with these national these big time national recruiting states, Louisiana, Florida, California, Arizona. I mean, just some great baseball. But yeah, the level of talent it far exceeded my expectation. The pitching was crazy. Every guy he rolled out was 88 to 92. You saw 95. And our guys, they more than held their own. Our lineup was as good as anybody's. The pitching, it gets back to balls and strikes in that tournament, and they got college and AA umpires. That strike zone's a little bit different than that strike zone you see on Wednesday afternoon in a high school game. So
Yeah.
I think I'm not speaking for these guys. I know a couple of the pitchers pretty intimately. I've worked out with them, and I think they learned a lot, about the next level and how they're going to have to approach, pitching. So I think as much as it's fun, it's a learning experience for a lot of those guys too.
Yeah, no, those games were televised on ESPN this year, and I think it was right around July 4th. Yeah, and
to the 4th or something like that.
Yeah, I had just been watching like the College World Series for the previous month on ESPN. I was like, this doesn't look that much different.
No.
The velocity is pretty similar. The quality of play is definitely right there.
Yeah. No, it was. It was as good as any high school tournament you're going to see, any club tournament, because it's just the best of the best. It's the best club kids from all these states and all these showcase teams and stuff, and now they all just get together and play, for their state. I mean,
Right.
If you look at the Massachusetts roster, it's the who's who of club baseball, high school baseball in Massachusetts.
Yeah, I like to look at the commitments. It's all like Power Four, University of Virginia, Duke, all these big time schools.
Just had the Burns kid just committed to, Owen just committed to Auburn.
Auburn, I saw that. Yeah. He's going to reclassify. He's going to go up a year, I guess.
Yeah.
He's going to graduate early.
Yeah, he's a young kid too. He's one of these guys that kind of defies the 19-year-old high school senior. He was young for his grade anyway, and he's going to bump ahead. So I think he's going to be more than ready at that point. He's a pretty advanced kid. He's super talented.
Yeah, you mentioned your football background and your football coach being a huge influence on you. I had a coach ask me this. He was pretty dialed into this team, Massachusetts. He loved all the rosters we were putting out, all that stuff. And he asked me how many of these guys, so I think it was 18 guys on the team.
He was like 20. I think it was 20 this year, but yeah.
Oh, did it get up to 20? Okay.
The year before, yeah.
And he asked me how many of those guys are playing baseball year round versus, playing football in the fall or playing hockey in the whatever it would be. What would you say, and you don't want to discourage these guys from playing multiple sports, but
never.
But I don't know if that's the way it's going now. Were a lot of those guys year round baseball players?
I would say the majority. I know Luke Joyce, the Braintree kid, I know he plays hockey. I would be willing to bet most, if not all, are probably year-round baseball guys. And I think that with a lot of those guys, like I know Owen played hockey when he was younger. I know a lot of these kids played multiple sports growing up.
Mm-hmm.
I think when they get to a point where they're what you would consider an elite player, and I think there's a difference between good high school and then there's elite,
Yeah.
I think that's when they realize that their future will be based on baseball, and that's when they make that move. And it's, a lot of them, it's probably prior to committing. And, with, like you said, the fall, it's turning into a big recruiting time for baseball. And, if a kid were to play football or soccer in the fall or run track, like he wouldn't be able to do that. He
Right.
wouldn't be able to commit to that team. And, so I think, for the elite player, I think you're seeing more and more veer towards specialization. Yeah.
Yeah. And it is, like you get on these college training programs where, you're on this, to ramp back your arm back up and get ready to pitch in late March, in these prepper high school games. So it's eventually you're going to do that anyway. So I understand why they do it, but like you do like to see them play other sports, learn how to play different roles when they're not the best player on their team, support their teammates, all that type of life lesson stuff that you get.
Yeah, good. Develop leadership skills, compete in different areas. Like you said, when you're not the dude, you might have to be the complimentary guy. That's going to make you a better leader because you're going to understand your teammates' point of view, who isn't the number one guy, and it should make you a better leader and a better player. Again, at our school, for us personally, and again, what affects most high school programs, you want and encourage multiple sport athletes. Because again, speaking to the majority, you might be the best guy in baseball at 14 and 15. You might not be the best guy at 16 and 17. Your view on sports might change. You might have been baseball your whole life because dad wakes you up, puts you in the car, and drives you, to your hitting lesson on Saturday morning. Once you get the freedom to do what you want, you might not want to do that. You might want to go shoot hoops. You might want to. I can't even begin to tell you how many kids have been just tunnel visioned on baseball and say all they want to do is play college baseball. Then they get to their junior year and all of a sudden it changes. Well, I don't know if I want to play. I might want to play football. I might want to play basketball. So I think, and again, speaking to the majority, right, that's why you should play multiple sports. You just don't know what the future holds.
Yeah.
Now, again, eliminating the elite player. The elite player, where everyone kind of agrees, okay, that kid, he's on a path towards D1 potential pro. That's different. But Cam's a good example. Cam played hoop during high school. It never had any effect on him,
No, it's a good point that that's not the right question. How many guys on Team Massachusetts? Because those are special guys that aren't applicable to everybody else. Like on a high school team, those guys aren't playing D1. Like they should become well-rounded athletes. But
that's why, when people ask me that question, I said it's twofold. Like there's not a right answer there, right? Because multiple sport athletes is going to benefit the majority, not the minority, which is the elite. The elite guys, they're different.
Yeah.
Those guys are different. Some of these guys are getting paid to play in college now. So it's different, and I'm not going to disagree with a kid who says, who's going to go play at a Power 4 school that's going to say, well, I'm not playing hoop this year. I'm going to get in the weight room. Okay. He's thinking maybe beyond college and maybe for a potential pro career, because if at that age you're already that good and you're considered the elite, then maybe that next step is a potential option for you.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense. And I want to go back to your playing career. I mentioned you played 6 years professionally.
Yep.
You had said it was always a dream of yours to go back to Walpole and, be the successor. What did that ease that transition when you finally were like, okay, I'm ready to retire from being a professional baseball player? Did it make it easier to go back to Walpole and started as assistant coach there? How did you come to the decision? And even when you were playing professionally, did you always know, hey, this is the plan afterwards?
No, never. My career didn't end, baseball wise, by it wasn't my decision. It was, walking off a field in Fort Myers of all places with the Red Sox and being told for the second time that, you're no longer wanted. I then knew it was time to move on. So, the funny story about me getting into coaching is I got back, I was working with who's now my assistant coach. I just picked up a quick part-time job down at Sam's Appliance in Norwood with Lee Delaney, just delivering fridges. Then I get a job in maintenance over at the church and the school in my town. I end up coaching the middle school basketball team. And I just absolutely fell in love with coaching. And I saw Coach Tompkins one day. We talked. He's like, sure, come on. I came on that first year as an assistant. That was the spring of '97. We had Johnny Burtwell, who went on to Harvard, had an extensive career with the Tigers up to AAA. Then Billy O'Connell was the Legion coach at the time, asked me to coach Legion. Then that parlayed right into football. And I've been coaching year round since.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I always, knew I would come back to Walpole. I'm always been a townie, and and then the coaching thing. It's funny. I got the bug. I started coaching middle school basketball at Blessed Sacrament School in Walpole.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, now you've become one of the most respected baseball coaches in the state of Massachusetts. So it's been a great ride.
Yeah, we've had great kids. You don't do it without great kids and great parents. Every town, every coach in their town thinks it's a special town, but I think, Walpole is unique with the longevity of success in multiple sports. It's a fun town to coach in.
For sure. Yeah. And you mentioned Bill O'Connell. Like, I think Braintree's somewhat similar, like long
Absolutely.
baseball traditions. They're in the state tournament every year. They're dangerous. If they get deep, I love both
very
those
similar
towns.
kids. The kids are very similar. The coaching styles are almost identical.
Yeah.
We like to pride ourselves on what we call town teams. We've had some battles, not just in high school, but in Little League too. Braintree beat us in the state final this year in Little League. And then, Braintree obviously went on to Williamsport, and in 2019, the year we won the Little League title with the seniors that just graduated, I coached those guys. We beat Braintree in the final that year. So we're always going to be connected, those two programs, and have been before Billy and I were coaching with, Coach Tompkins and Coach Fredericks. It's one of the best rivalries in the state.
Yeah. Yeah. It is awesome. Hey, Chris, do you have time to hang in for our 3 up, 3 down segment with our producer,
Absolutely.
David Yaz? All right.
Yeah.
Good deal. Here's David Yaz.
3 up, 3 down.
3 up, 3 down is the segment where I have 3 questions for each of our panelists. It is baseball's MLB, at least postseason, that we're in the midst of right now. I'm going to give you 3 moments from the postseason involving controversial rules or controversial rulings. And I'm just going to ask you what you think about them. Chris, you can go first with this one. It's the infield fly rule. Everyone's favorite rule. I love explaining the infield fly rule to people. Said no one ever.
Yep.
What happened was in the 2012 NL wildcard game between the Braves and the Cardinals in the 8th inning, there was a high pop-up into shallow left field. The shortstop, Pete Cosmo, ran out to make the play, but at the last second, he tailed away thinking outfielder Matt Holliday would take it. It fell to the ground, but umpire Sam Holbrook had already invoked the infield fly rule. It killed the rally. The Cardinals won the game. Do we need any reform for the infield fly rule? That was a weird one because it was kind of a tweener, but tell us your thoughts, Chris.
Yeah, I mean, I think infield fly at the big league level can be a little different than the high school level because of, the height of a fly ball. But the misconception is that, an outfielder can't catch an infield fly. And as we know, you can't put a depth on the infield fly in terms of, the shallow cuts in the infield there. I think the infield fly rule is perfect. It's intended to protect the runners. I mean, if he didn't call infield fly and he let it drop and they turn a double play, the argument's going to go the other way. So I think the infield fly rule is perfect as it exists.
Interesting. Dan, your thoughts?
That made me think. No, I'm gonna go with Chris here. He's obviously been around it a lot longer, but it did make me think of how subjective it is. Like, do you call it differently at the professional level because of the player's ability to turn a double play and how skilled they are versus high school guys, the depth, the height of the fly ball, yeah, all that. It's a lot for an umpire to process. But you're right, you can't just say, hey, that's the infielder had to back up or the outfielder had to come in. And now
the key phrase in it is ordinary effort. Now, I'm a rule geek, so I know a lot of these rules, like ordinary effort, right? So if he's under it and then he backs away, he still could have caught it with ordinary effort.
Right.
Does that apply to a line drive as well? Because occasionally you will see a player.
That falls under the integrity of the game. They will protect a runner. You can't bat it down. Yes, it's a version of the integrity of the game and a branch of the infield fly. You can't just knock a line drive down to turn a double play. I learned that rule in 1993, Bakersfield, California, and Sean McCamey, who played for the Minnesota Twins, made that play and they instantly ruled it dead. That's the first time. I just remember these. It's weird.
It reminds me of one of the weirder plays in World Series history where there was like a soft line drive to Dodgers in 1978, I believe, or maybe 77, but shortstop Bill Russell for the Dodgers appeared to intentionally drop a line drive, stepped on second, through to first, but there was Reggie Jackson in the way who stood like a statue and it went off his leg. So there were like two different things to argue. So maybe they actually got it right in
now you can back off and let it hit the ground.
Right.
But you cannot assist it to the ground. Yeah.
Interesting. Wow. Geez, we came to the right place for these questions. Man.
I know. I don't want to differ here on any of these.
Yeah. Infield fly rule, for whatever it's worth, I agree as well, because you would, if you got rid of it, you would get the odd sight of, now sometimes you see it of like a first baseman or anyone really will drop a pop fly, but what you're doing is swapping runners. If there are two runners on, then you could easily get a double play. And it would be like
different with one on, right. And that's been done by high IQ guys, short little pop-ups. You got the catcher running the first. Yeah, we'll get one off to get the other one in. Yep.
All right, very good. Question number 2, and Dan, you can take this one first. The Chase Utley rule came about because of a moment in the 2015 NLDS when his hard slide into second broke Ruben Tejada's leg. So they rewrote the rule. I don't know if I should read it because I think Chris already knows it by heart, but I didn't realize how restrictive the rule was. There are 4 parts to it. The runner needs now to begin his slide before reaching a base. He needs to be able to reach the base with a hand or a foot. He needs to be able to stay on the base after the slide, and he cannot intentionally initiate contact with the fielder. So Dan, your thoughts on the Chase Utley rule? It seems like it's working, but some purists might say, oh, come on, Ty Cobb used to do it all the time.
And Chase Utley is one of my favorite players. So I'm not going to say that what he did, so he played, and Red Sox fans are probably feel a different way about this because Pedroia's career basically ended because he got spiked by Machado, right? Or it eventually ended. So I love Chase Utley, but I do think those are good rules to have in place. You got to stay on the bag through the slide. You have to start sliding before the bag. And in that one, he just kind of wiped the infielder out. Mm-hmm. Like he kind of ran through the bag. I don't even know if he slid on that play, but
rolled him.
Yeah. So it's probably a good rule if you're looking out for the safety of the game. I did love the way that Chase Utley, he just went 100% every step on the field. He, hustled out to his position. He was just a guy who was going hard all the time, but yeah, that probably wasn't great that he was taking out other players while he was doing it.
All right. You got it in your daily reverence for Chase Utley, Dan. So well done. Coach, your thoughts?
Yeah, I like the rule as well. I mean, if you go back and watch some of the, the old highlights in the 70s, and they would just truck guys past the bag, what we used to call rolling a guy, go in high spikes. Then they actually started teaching shortstops to throw submarine, to get guys down earlier because they would tell them. I remember our infield instructors when I was with the Dodgers, drop down, get him on the ground. If he's not, drill him in the forehead. So I do like, arm's length. You can still play hard, go to the bag and attempt to, quote unquote, break up a double play. But these guys are so super athletic and big now that, you very rarely see much contact on a true double play. You'll see it occasionally on a flip or something that there'll be some contact made there. But to answer the question, I like the rule. It's the way it's constructed right now.
Yeah, in a way, it may be related to what used to be an unwritten rule at second base, the neighborhood rule, where the middle infielder
didn't have to touch the base.
Right. Didn't really have to touch the base. He just needed to be in the neighborhood of it, which is, in hindsight, silly. So, but since you got the Chase Utley rule now, you can enforce it better, I guess. So, now if they'll just stop basketball players from traveling on every play, I'll be happy. All right. Final question for 3 up, 3 down. Yeah. Let's talk about the ghost runner. It's relevant this year. Because, of course, the Dodgers just played an 18-inning game in the World Series, defeating the Blue Jays in 18. probably wouldn't have happened in the regular season with the ghost runner. Of course, that was the Dodgers' second in recent memory 18-inning game that they won and then went on to lose the series. So I think the Dodgers, if you get to 18 innings, just lose, Dodgers, because it's not helping you. But the question is, the question is it working? Because does it make sense to have it in the regular season and not have it in the postseason? Chris, what do you think?
So I think in the regular season, as we see how managers handle relievers anyway in certain games, and you see position players. So I think for the integrity of the game as it's played in the regular season, I don't have a terrible problem with it. Because I think what you would see is if you had an 18-inning regular season game, the next two games would be adversely affected through the bullpen, and you see position players pitching, and the quality of play would be a joke. And for purists, guys, I love Jeff Fry. I don't know if you guys follow him on She Gone on Twitter, and he just hates that position players pitching. And so the shorter answer is regular season, I like it, but certainly in the playoffs, you got to win the game. You got to win the game the way it's intended to play. So,
but in employing the ghost runner during the regular season, I think they've just made the postseason a little bit more special, because now you're with certain exceptions. The Dodgers and Padres did somehow play a 16-inning game with the ghost runner in recent years. But for the most part, those games end in the 10th or the 11th or whatever. Right. But then, postseason, it's great. It's just like that, all hands on deck. But I should let Dan answer. Dan, what do you think?
No, I hadn't really thought. So I am more of the mind that I didn't like the ghost runner at all when they implemented it a couple of years ago. I just felt like they had gone too far in trying to speed the game up and just be like, hey, we want these games to be 2 hours and 30 minutes, and we want to just keep things moving, pitch clock. We're going to throw a runner at second base and extra innings just to keep this thing moving. And I didn't love that, because I do like to kind of settle it on the field. I hadn't thought of the idea that, like, hey, if these things do go 15 innings or 18 innings, the next two games are going to be a joke, because it's going to be the managers protecting their bullpens. And so that's a good point. So I'm probably going to side with Chris on this one. I like it. I like the way they do it in the postseason, and I guess I'm okay with the ghost runner in the regular season as long as it keeps things clean for the next couple of games.
Yeah, I'm with you. At first, when they announced it, when you first heard it, I think everyone was kind of like, what? It reminded me of like when you're playing wiffle ball with your friends, and it's like invisible man on second base. It was almost that sort of unconventional, but it seems to be working. I've come to love the ghost runner. Everybody hug Casper the Ghost. Okay.
Now, hey, I'm going to give you a question. Do you know how that run is scored on in terms of earned run, unearned run? Do you know who gets credit for that run in the ghost runner in the regular season?
I thought, I could be wrong, but I thought that it does not. Well, the player scoring the run, I think, gets tallies a run in his offensive stats, but I think it just isn't it that it just doesn't appear on the pitcher stats because it's an inherited runner.
It goes to the team ERA.
Interesting.
The pitcher does not get penalized for that runner,
which makes sense. Yeah. It's not his
just
fault.
A little tidbit there for the viewers. Yeah.
That's good.
I like it.
He didn't put him on. He doesn't deserve to get.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. I'd be pissed if I was a reliever. 3 or 4 times I'll come in the extra innings and I give up that run and be like, wait a minute, that ain't my guy.
Stop putting me in an extra innings.
My ERA just went from 2.6 to 3.2 because this stupid rule. But that's the right way to do it. Yeah.
Yep. Very good. You've both done very well in 3 up, 3 down. And I'll see what I can do to get you both a Chase Utley bobblehead doll. Oh, my God. Dan already has one of those. All right, back to you.
I love Chase Utley. He's a hell of a player.
Yeah, he was. All right, thanks to Chris Costello for joining us on the Base Path podcast. Rate, review, subscribe to your podcast on your preferred platform. All of the podcasts are on YouTube as well. Thanks to our producer, David Yaz. The Base Path podcast is a Siemens Media production.